You know, if you give someone a fish, you'll feed them for a day, but if you teach someone to fish, then you could feed them for a lifetime. So what I'm going to do here is I'm not going to show you how the assignment works so much as I'm going to show you how I solved the assignment and how I learned to read in CSV files in Python so that you can make a little sense of the process, and maybe you can do that same process yourself to learn some more. So we're going to look at the second assignment, the week 2 assignment for MEC 217. And we've already taken a look, and we know that it has something to do with this file, 6 temperatures at 25 degrees C. .csv. We know it's a CSV file because we had a video explaining where it came from the Arduino. So I've downloaded all of the stuff from the archive file for week 2 and put it into this directory on my desktop, week 2 step by step. And my computer already thinks that this CSV file has something to do with Excel. So if I just double click the CSV file, Excel opens it. It takes a little while. And Excel shows me a spreadsheet that looks like this. So seconds and some labels for the temperatures and another label for battery voltage. And this looks like time in seconds and a whole lot of temperature values all around 25 degrees. And if I move down that spreadsheet, it goes on for a long way, a very long way. So I'd like to try to work with it in Jupyter Notebooks. So knowing that I've got a CSV file, knowing that I can read it with Excel, I'd like to know how to read a CSV file with Python. So I go to Google and I type in Python CSV. And it suggests there are some other possibilities here, but let's do a search on Python CSV first. And I get a bunch of stuff about CSV file reading. And if I picked up on this one, I'd wind up with this page here, CSV, a library for CSV file reading and writing. And without reading very much of what's going on there, I can go down and look at this example. It tells me I'm going to have to import the CSV library, and then I'm going to have to use something sort of formatted like this to read in everything that's in it. So let's just copy that. And I'll go over here and I'm going to go to my desktop to the week 2 step-by-step directory. It's already got lots of stuff in there, but let's make a new file, new Python 3 notebook. And I'm going to copy the stuff that I got from the CSV file there. Now these are command prompt elements from the interpreter. So I'm going to take that off and I'm just going to put the code in. And now let's try running that and see what happens. No surprise it couldn't find this file called eggs.csv. Well, we wanted 6temp15, that thing. So that's the file name we want. I'll just copy it and I'll paste it in there. And that one's already in our directory. So now if I run that, well, it looks like it succeeded in reading it in. It's got a whole lot of stuff there for the different rows in the reader. And we should be able to somehow figure out what all those numbers are. And it goes on also for a long way. So we probably don't want to print it out. We probably want to put it in an array. So for row in spam reader, well, I want to take all of the rows for rows in Spam Reader and put them all together into an array. So putting square brackets around them will turn them into an array. And I'd like it to be an array that I can use in NumPy. So I need to call a NumPy function, and it's going to be a function that will turn that into an array, a NumPy array. And I had to do a bunch more searching to find that function, but that should turn those into an array, and I'm not gonna print it this time. So now I've got, that's going to turn that into an array, and I'd like to put it in a variable so that I can work on it later. So let's call that A. And now I run that. Oh, and I got a name error because NP is not defined. So as usual, we need to import all the libraries we want to use. So I'm also going to import NumPy as NP. I run that. Oh, it looks like it worked, or did something. I don't know what it did. Let's print A. Run that. There's a lot of stuff there. Now it's an array with a bunch of arrays in it, and they all have different values. And I think those ellipses there mean that there's a whole lot of stuff in between here and 381 seconds at the very end of the file. So if I wanted to know more about that array, well, I could print the shape of the array. Whoops. I think that's a NumPy function. There we go. And it's 40,000 and some lines long and 9 things wide. 1, 2, 3, and so on up to 9. And it looks like it's got things that are made out of strings. So let's see if we can just print out a small part of A. So A's got 2 dimensions. So let's print A 0, 0. That should be the first element in the array. And if I print that out, it's seconds. So that was the 0 row, and the 0 column was the word seconds there, and it's a string, and it's got a comma attached to it. Okay. And if I went to row number 2, column number 3, what do I get? I get 25.730, comma. Now that was row 2, 0, 1, 2. Oh, I can't really see what's in the middle of that column there. But I bet that the next one along here is 25.730. Let's try going for row 3, column 2. No, that won't work either. Let's try going for row 1, column 2, and print that, just to see if we get what we think we ought to get. So row 0, row 1, column 0, column 1, column 2, we got 26.605. So that matches up. So I'm starting to get a sense of how we can go into these arrays here. Now let's print A12 plus A13. That ought to give us the sum of 26.605 and whatever's beside it there, shouldn't it? Oh, hang on, it just gave us two numbers separated by commas. It's because these things in quotation marks here are strings. So somehow we're going to have to turn them into numbers if we want to do some arithmetic on them. So let's have another array. Let's call it B. And it can be np dot as float array of A. Oh, value error, a whole lot of bad stuff going on here. Could not convert string to float, seconds. It got to here and it couldn't figure out how to make that into a floating point number. So we can't convert the whole array into floating point numbers. So I better start with only part of the array and we can slice it. So I want to start at row 1, not at row 0. And with the colon, 1 colon, I can go all the way from 1 to the end. And let's try that. Well, it looks like I've still got the same kind of problem. Oh, hang on, but it's not happening at the same kind of place. So after messing around for a while, I decided it probably had something to do with this comma here that was causing me the problem. And that comma was already there way back up here when I did the conversion. So I don't know what the different arguments in these functions are doing, but let's just try with the defaults. So let's get rid of any details here and just say that we're trying to read a CSV file. And try that one. And sure enough, if I get rid of all of the extra junk, I wind up with some numbers there with no commas. I print the shape of it, it's still the same. I print those two when they add together, and I get the same thing except without the commas this time. So let's try looking at a piece of the array here. So let's just try converting A again. Well, I've got a floating point problem. It can't convert seconds, so I've still got that problem where I need to leave off row 0. So let's try taking it just from row 1. Up. And I've got another error here. Could not convert string to float. But then it doesn't tell me what the string is. If I look up here, going along row 1, I've got a whole lot of floating point numbers, and then I've got a blank string at the end. So maybe I need to go not so far along the row. So let's only go from 0 to 5 and see what we get. Well, it worked that time. So let's print some of that and see what we get out of it. Print what's in B for just the first 5 rows. So 0 to 5. Let's see what we get. Okay, I got the right sort of stuff. I'm missing still 2 of the temperature values that I thought were in the file there. I had 6 of them. So let's not just go out to 5, let's go out to 7. And there was another thing, the battery voltage on the end, wasn't there? Let's go out to 8. Okay. So now I've got the time and 6 temperatures and a battery voltage in each row. So that's good. And now they're floating point numbers. So let's try, instead of printing A12, let's try, and A13, let's try printing the sum for the B. So Command V. Whoop. Well, paste that down there, and we'll try it on B. And it adds the two numbers together. I get 52.256. So that would be B1, that's that row, 0, 1, 2, plus 3, so 26.526 plus 25.73. Does that add up? That should give me 52 and about 0.256. So that looks like it adds up. So now I've got a floating point array of stuff. I can start doing some analysis on it. So let's see if we can get the times. The times are all in column 0 here. So T equals, we want to cut column 0 off of that array B. So we want all of the rows. So we can just put colon for all of the rows. And then we want only column 0. That worked. Did we get what we thought we were going to get? Yeah, we got a whole lot of numbers that started at 4 and a bit and went up to 380 something. So we got the times there. So we could get T0, the first column of temperatures, the same way, equal to B colon, and we'll take column 1. And print that out. What do we got? We got a whole lot of temperatures. So now we could plot time and temperature together. Plot's not defined. We need to have our plotting library. So we'll remember before we also imported some stuff to do some plotting. We had pulled that out of another file. So we imported the matplotlib plotter as plot, and we had this directive to tell it to put it in line so that we can see it in the notebook. So I better run that again, just so that we've got the plot library imported. I can go back down here and now I can try plotting it out. And there we go. We've got a plot of temperature versus time. And if I wanted to know what the mean temperature for that first one was, well, I could calculate the mean. Let's just say M equals mean of T0. And mean is one of those functions that's in the NP library. worked. Print M. And the mean temperature is 25.1028. And the standard deviation is NP dot std of T0. And if I was to print that, I can just use S as shorthand for print S. I get 0.1574. Well, do these numbers make sense? 25.1, 25.1, there's the mean. 0.1574, that would be 25.1 up to 25.35, about there. So that would be one standard deviation and one standard deviation down here. That looks like it might be a number that makes sense. So now I've succeeded in calculating the mean and the standard deviation of one of the columns from this big two-dimensional array. I think I'll stop there, and in the next video we'll look at how we might deal with all of the columns at the same time using a for loop. Now you might reasonably ask me, how did you know about these other functions like as array and shape and as floating array? And basically I'd Googled around until I found them. So suppose I was in Python, I wanted to convert to a NumPy array. I'm not sure what I'm converting. And right there, there's that as array function. And it tells me there's this as array function and there's also this as floating array function. And that I can give it some stuff and tell it how to convert. So finding my way to those functions was fairly easy. How did I find the shape? Well, let's go back and see what about, I'm interested in NumPy arrays. And when I type that in, it gives me a bunch of choices of old searches, but let's say I didn't know about those old searches. NumPy array size, length. Okay, it's got this size thing, or the lengths of a, how do I find the length or dimensions of a NumPy matrix? That looks like what I'm after. And it's got this length function, but that only lets me take the length of one thing. I look down here to answers, and oh, it says use shape. Shape is a property of the array. So that might lead me to look a little more for shape. And the array has a shape property. Is there a shape function? The function shape returns the shape of an array. So that's the sort of process I would go through to find these things. And it took me a while to get there. And it's going to take you a while to find them too. But I think going through the process helps along the way. Now I've given you most of these in the examples. And now I'm showing you where I found them.